Turn your failures into fuel. Stoic IronMind Strategy. What if every failure you've ever tried to escape was actually the most valuable thing you've ever touched? And what if the real tragedy wasn't the failure itself, but the fact that you wasted it? You were taught to fear defeat, to hide it, to explain it away. But failure is not a wound. Failure is raw material. It's information, pressure, and fire. It reveals what comfort hides. It exposes the gap between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. And it forces you to confront the truth you keep avoiding, that nothing in you becomes stronger without friction, collapse, and reconstruction. The Stoics understood this long before you felt your first disappointment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle is not a punishment, but a path. Seneca warned that comfort breeds fragility. Nietzsche burned the idea into philosophy. What doesn't kill you doesn't make you stronger automatically. Only if you confront it consciously, tear it apart, and rebuild yourself with its ashes. Failure is not a teacher by default. It becomes one only when you stop running from its lessons. Your problem isn't that you failed. Your problem is that you treat failure like an ending instead of fuel. You mourn outcomes that were never guaranteed. You cling to expectations you never earned. You act like the universe betrayed you, when in reality, it presented the exact conditions required to forge a mind that cannot be broken again by the same blow. You're not weak because you fall. You're weak because you refuse to extract meaning from the impact. Viktor Frankl said, "Despair emerges from suffering without purpose. The same is true for failure. When you attach no purpose to it, it becomes poison. When you give it purpose, it becomes power, discipline, clarity, resilience. These are the byproducts of failure metabolized correctly. Look at your past collapses. Each one is still holding energy you never harvested. You left entire reservoirs of insight untouched because you were too busy protecting your ego. And that is why you break in the same ways, because you are not learning, you are repeating. And repetition without awareness is not growth. It's decay disguised as endurance. Today you stop wasting your failures. Today you reclaim them as fuel. This isn't motivation, it's reconstruction. You will learn to analyze what broke you, why it broke you, and what part of you allowed the break. You will turn your failures into weapons, strategies, and armor. You will understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It is the architecture of success, the foundation, the blueprint, the fire that shapes the iron. The world taught you to hide your scars. Stoic Iron Mind teaches you to sharpen them. The real nature of failure. You keep calling things failures that were never failures at all. They were confrontations with reality. Reality doesn't care about your timeline, your hopes, your fragile image of yourself. Reality has one function: to expose what is unprepared. Every collapse you experienced was simply the moment the truth became louder than your illusions. You think failure is an enemy because you built your identity on outcomes you couldn't guarantee. You tied your worth to victories instead of character. So when life removes the illusion, you panic. You think you lost something, but failure doesn't take anything from you. It only reveals what was never solid. It dismantles the fantasies you used to avoid responsibility. It destroys the self you pretended to be. And that destruction is necessary because the false self cannot survive the weight of a real life. Epictetus said the only thing truly yours is your ability to interpret and act. Yet you react to failure as if the universe stole something you owned. What you call failure is simply the interruption of your expectations. Expectations you created. Expectations you worshipped. Expectations that hollowed you out because you never questioned where they came from or why you believed you deserved them. Failure is a mirror you refuse to look into. It reflects your patterns, your impulses, your emotional addictions, your untrained mind. It reveals how easily you break, how fast you give up, how quickly you blame circumstances instead of confronting your inner architecture. And that is why failure feels humiliating, because it exposes the parts of you that remain undisciplined. But there is nothing humiliating about truth. Humiliation only comes when you resist it. You want to grow without being challenged. You want strength without pressure. You want mastery without repetition. You want transformation without dismantling the weak layers you've been protecting for years. And when life denies that fantasy, you call it failure. But life isn't denying you. It's preparing you, sharpening you, removing the softness that would collapse under real responsibility. Jung said that people don't fear the darkness of reality. They fear the light of who they could be if they stopped lying to themselves. Failure drags you into that light. It forces you to see the difference between the disciplined self you want and the inconsistent self you currently are. It forces you to confront the internal disorder you keep blaming on external conditions. Failure is not a message that you should quit. It is a message that you should evolve. It is the universe's way of asking whether you want comfort or transformation. Most people choose comfort. That is why they repeat the same year of their lives for decades. They rewrite their failures into excuses instead of extracting the insights that could change the trajectory of their entire existence. You don't become powerful by succeeding. You become powerful by no longer collapsing when success fails to appear. Failure is neutral. You are the one who assigns meaning to it. And if you choose the wrong meaning, you will keep suffering needlessly. But if you choose the right meaning, everything changes. Your discipline, your emotional strength, your sense of purpose. When you understand the real nature of failure, you stop fearing it. You start using it. And that's the difference between someone who survives life and someone who shapes it. Failure reveals the part of you that still needs to grow. Most people waste their failures because they waste the information inside them. They treat failure like a verdict, not a diagnosis. They're so busy protecting their pride that they ignore the one thing failure always gives them: a map of their weakest points. Failure isn't a dead end. It's a blueprint, a precise, unforgiving blueprint of the parts of you that remain underdeveloped. And the truth is simple. If it broke you, it needed to break you. Nothing collapses in your life unless it was already cracked. Failure didn't create the weakness. It exposed it. You weren't defeated by the event itself. You were defeated by the part of you that refused to grow before the event arrived. That's why blaming circumstances is pointless. The circumstance didn't choose you. Your unpreparedness chose the result. Seneca warned that the man who avoids difficulty is the man who guarantees his own fragility. You avoid resistance because it makes you uncomfortable, yet you expect to be strong. Strength is not built in comfort. Strength is built in confrontation with everything inside you that prefers the easy route. And failure brings that confrontation directly to your doorstep. Every failure is a message. This part of you is not ready. Not ready to lead, not ready to endure, not ready to act with clarity, not ready to control your impulses, not ready to maintain discipline under pressure. Failure is feedback, not punishment. Modern psychology says the same in different words. You don't fail because you lack potential. You fail because you lack structure. Structure of thought, structure of behavior, structure of discipline. Failure shows where your structure collapses under weight, and unless you rebuild it stronger, you will collapse again, in the same way, at the same level, at the same moment. Look at your patterns. You break in the same places repeatedly because you refuse to evolve the version of yourself that keeps showing up. You want success with an outdated identity. You want new results with old habits. You want transformation without updating the internal system running your life. Nietzsche wrote that the greatest act of strength is self-overcoming, transcending the version of yourself that is no longer useful. Failure demands exactly that. It forces you to let the weak parts die so stronger parts can replace them. But most people cling to the weaker self because they fear the death of who they are more than they desire the birth of who they could be. You keep asking, why does this keep happening to me? The answer is brutally direct, because you keep showing up as the same person. Failure is not recurring by accident. It's recurring by design, your design. Your refusal to evolve guarantees repetition. When you ignore the lesson, life repeats the exam with higher stakes. Viktor Frankl said that suffering stops being suffering the moment you assign meaning to it. Failure stops being failure the moment you assign responsibility to it. Not guilt, responsibility. Responsibility builds direction. Guilt builds paralysis. Responsibility says, this happened because this part of me was not strong enough yet. And from that point forward, weakness becomes instruction. When you see failure as information, not identity, it becomes fuel. It becomes strategy. It becomes direction. And that's when your growth accelerates beyond anything you thought possible. Failure reveals what still needs to grow. Your job is to stop ignoring that message. The ego tries to hide your failures from you. The most dangerous reaction to failure isn't pain, it's denial. And denial is the ego's favorite strategy. The ego can't tolerate evidence that contradicts the image it built of itself, so it distorts the truth until you feel protected and stuck. When something collapses in your life, the ego rushes to shield you from responsibility, because responsibility feels like exposure. But exposure is exactly what growth requires. The ego whispers that the world is unfair, that others got lucky, that timing was off, that someone sabotaged you, that it wasn't your fault. It gives you excuses disguised as explanations. It gives you comfort disguised as reasoning. And every time you accept that comfort, you sacrifice strength. The ego's mission is simple: protect your identity at the cost of your evolution. Epictetus warned that no man is free who is not master of himself. The ego keeps you enslaved to an image of who you think you are. It prevents you from confronting who you actually are. Failure is supposed to bring clarity, but the ego injects noise into the signal. It convinces you to focus on everything external because facing the internal would threaten your fragile sense of self. And this is why most people never transform. They defend themselves instead of upgrading themselves. Modern psychology calls this cognitive dissonance avoidance. When reality contradicts your self-image, the mind instinctively rejects reality. You don't want to believe that your discipline was insufficient, that your preparation was weak, that your habits were inconsistent, or that your mindset was misaligned. So you distort the story to preserve the illusion. You'd rather be wrong but comfortable than correct but responsible. But here's the paradox. Every time you protect your ego, you destroy your potential. The ego acts like armor, but it functions like a cage. Strength can't grow inside a cage because a cage prevents friction. And friction is the birthplace of resilience. Nietzsche warned that the self you refuse to face becomes the shadow that eventually consumes you. The ego hides your failures until those failures grow strong enough to define your life. Failure is not the enemy. Your ego's interpretation of failure is, when you strip away the ego's narrative, failure becomes exactly what it was meant to be. Accurate information about the gap between who you are and who you must become. That gap is not an insult, it's instruction. But the ego would rather keep you blind than let you see the truth. Ask yourself, how many opportunities died because you protected your pride instead of upgrading your character? How many times did you avoid discomfort and call it fate? How many things in your life remain broken because your ego convinced you they were not your fault? The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if someone shows you the truth, you should thank them, even if it stings. But most people run from truth because truth threatens the image they worship. And the brutal irony is this: the image is the weakest part of you. You are not the image. You are the capacity to grow beyond it. Viktor Frankl said that when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. The ego hates that idea because it requires humility, the willingness to accept that your current version is insufficient. But humility is the gateway to power. Humility dissolves illusion. Humility lets failure speak directly to you without filters, excuses, or distortions. When you silence the ego, failure becomes your instructor. When you listen to the ego, failure becomes your identity. Which one you choose determines whether your life expands or repeats. The Stoic law of transformation: failure is not the enemy. The enemy is the version of you that refuses to evolve. Every setback you face exposes a truth you've been avoiding, and the truth hurts because it's aimed at the weakest parts of your identity. Most people run from this confrontation. A Stoic walks straight into it. To grow, you must die before you die, Montaigne warned. The ego resists, but the mind that seeks strength understands that transformation begins where comfort ends. Look closely at your failures. They're not random. Each one has a pattern, and that pattern is a mirror. The Stoics called this the discipline of perception, seeing clearly without ego's distortion. When life punches you in the mouth, the blow isn't teaching you that you're weak, it's teaching you where you're weak. Frankl said suffering stops being suffering the moment you give it meaning. Nietzsche said the same truth from a different angle. What collapses you is never the weight, only the way you carry it. You've been taught to fear breaking, but iron doesn't fear the hammer. It requires it. The question is whether you're willing to let the impact reshape you instead of shatter you. Failure bends you only when you resist its lessons. When you accept them, you don't bend, you sharpen. Jung insisted that what you reject becomes your shadow, what you integrate becomes your power. If you reject failure, it follows you. If you integrate it, it fuels you. There's a moment after every fall when the mind hesitates. That hesitation is the battlefield. One voice whispers that this fall defines you. Another voice, the Stoic voice, reminds you that identity is a choice. Every time you rise, you rewrite it. Seneca said that adversity reveals a man to himself. He didn't say destroys, he said reveals. Your failures aren't trying to break your life. They're trying to reveal your life's next version. The path forward is brutally simple. Take what happened, strip it of emotion, extract the structure, and rebuild yourself with it. Failure is feedback. Pain is data. Discipline is the bridge between what you were and what you must become. Those who embrace this law don't move through life avoiding difficulty. They move through life collecting fuel. Every loss becomes a resource, every mistake becomes instruction, every collapse becomes construction. A weak mind breaks and stays down. A trained mind breaks and rises stronger. An iron mind breaks, learns, recalibrates, and advances with purpose. The world is built to punish softness, not effort. And if you want to move through it with clarity and force, you must convert every failure into the material of your next ascent. This is how the Stoic transforms, not by avoiding the fall, but by mastering the rise. The reconstruction protocol, rebuilding yourself after failure, is not a motivational process. It's an operation, cold, precise, and without negotiation. The world tells you to stay positive, to trust the process, but that is the language of people who fear looking directly at their wounds. A Stoic reconstructs by examining the damage with unflinching clarity. Marcus Aurelius said the obstacle becomes the way, but he never said the way would be gentle. The reconstruction protocol begins when you stop wishing things had gone differently and start dealing with things as they are. Failure exposes the fracture lines in your character. Impatience, ego, lack of discipline, emotional volatility. Most people pretend these cracks don't exist. They paint over them with motivational slogans and continue collapsing in the same places. But you're not building a decorative statue. You're tempering steel. Nietzsche warned that the self you refuse to confront becomes the tyrant that destroys you. This is why reconstruction demands honesty, sharper than the pain that caused the break. Ask yourself the question you've avoided. Why did this failure happen? Not the convenient answer, the real one. Was it distraction, entitlement, weak preparation, emotional softness, fear disguised as strategy? The ego hates these questions because the ego feeds on illusions. But a mind built for strength feeds on truth even when it stings. Schopenhauer believed pain forces the will to grow. He was right. Growth without discomfort is fantasy. Clarity without confrontation is impossible. Now strip the failure to its skeleton, remove the story, remove the blame, remove the emotion. What remains is the structure of the mistake, and this structure is your blueprint. Epictetus taught that the event is neutral, only your interpretation infects it. When you remove the infection, you see the mechanism, and once you see the mechanism, you can re-engineer it. Reconstruction is engineering. You adjust your habits, strengthen your weak points, break your patterns, correct your posture of mind. Every step of rebuilding must be tied to action. Reflection without action is self-indulgent. A Stoic rebuilds by altering behavior until reality responds differently. You train your mind with the same intensity you train a wounded warrior learning to fight again. Repeat the fundamentals: discipline, clarity, restraint, resilience. These are not abstract virtues. They're tools, and tools must be sharpened through use. From believed freedom requires responsibility. A mind without responsibility is a mind that repeats failure forever. And here's the part most people run from. Reconstruction is not a single moment, it's a cycle. You will rebuild yourself more than once in your life, and each version will be stronger than the last. Viktor Frankl said, "Life asks you a question every day, and your answer is your action." After failure, the question is simple: will you rise as the same person, or will you rise as someone superior? The iron mind chooses the second every time, the discipline that turns failure into fuel. There is a moment after every failure when the world goes silent, not because everything is calm, but because you finally run out of excuses. That silence is where discipline is either born or dies. People think discipline is about motivation or willpower, but discipline is the ability to act without needing a feeling to guide you. It's the refusal to negotiate with your weaker self. Marcus Aurelius called it obedience to reason. Nietzsche called it the shaping of one's own fate. In truth, discipline is the bridge between failure and transformation. Most people fail and immediately seek emotional relief. They distract themselves. They rationalize. They wait to feel ready again. This is how failure becomes permanent. You're not here to feel ready. You're here to become unbreakable. Discipline begins when you respond to loss with structure instead of emotion. When you replace the comfort you crave with the action you fear. When you execute the next right step while your ego screams for escape. Seneca warned that suffering comes from trying to avoid the inevitable. The disciplined mind confronts the inevitable and shapes it. Your failure revealed the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. Discipline closes that gap. You act to correct what broke. You train the exact weakness that cost you progress. You become ruthless with distractions. You enforce time, focus, and silence. You eliminate the behaviors that dragged you into mediocrity. Jung believed unresolved parts of the self sabotage every ascent. Discipline is how you integrate those parts instead of being ruled by them. It is the steady hammer that shapes the fractured mind into something sharper. The disciplined person does not wait for clarity. They create it through action. Every repetition of discipline rewires the brain. Every act of restraint strengthens the inner commander. Every step taken without emotion strengthens the identity you're building. Identity through action. is the essence of Stoicism. You do not rise because you feel strong. You rise because your actions leave weakness no place to stand. Fromm wrote that responsibility is the deepest form of freedom. Discipline is responsibility in motion. Now understand the real transformation. Discipline is not punishment. It's purification. It burns away the softness that made you fail. It destroys the mental noise that kept you scattered. It reveals who you are when excuses die. Pain becomes fuel because discipline gives it direction. Frankl believed meaning comes from the stance we take towards suffering. When discipline guides your stance, suffering becomes strength instead of trauma. This is why disciplined people look unstoppable. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not mindset alone. It's the decision to act correctly even when everything inside them resists. It's the commitment to rebuild the parts of themselves that no one sees. It's the willingness to do the necessary, not the comfortable. When you turn failure into fuel, discipline is the spark that ignites the engine. Now you face the same question countless Stoics confronted before you. With your failure exposed, your illusions shattered, and your ego disarmed, will you choose discipline or denial? One path repeats the past, the other forges the iron mind. The Stoic IronMind Strategy: failure as a forge, not a grave. There is a point in every life when failure presses so deeply into your identity that you start believing you're defined by it. That belief is the real enemy, not the mistake, not the loss, not the collapse, the belief. The moment you confuse an event with a verdict, you hand your life to weakness. This is where most people stay. They circle their wounds like altars, protecting the story that keeps them small. You will not. The Stoic IronMind Strategy begins by killing the illusion that failure means something about your worth. It means something about your training, nothing more. You need to understand the brutality of this truth. You failed because you lacked something essential: discipline, patience, focus, humility, self-awareness. It doesn't matter which one. What matters is that the failure exposed it with surgical precision. That exposure is not humiliation, it is direction. Schopenhauer said that suffering reveals reality. Nietzsche said that what collapses deserved to. Jung said the shadow must be confronted or it destroys you. When you combine these truths, a new logic emerges. Failure is not a wall, it is an instruction manual. So you take the instruction, you examine the fracture, you identify the mental pattern that sabotaged you, you isolate the behavior that weakened your position. You look at your fear without blinking. You dissect the excuses you used to protect your ego. You become your own executioner, cutting away softness without apology. This is what separates the strong from the lost. Weak minds run from the lesson. Iron minds run toward it. Failure becomes fuel when you remove the emotional poison surrounding it. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Viktor Frankl taught that meaning comes from the stance we choose. Seneca taught that the obstacle shapes the soul. Marcus Aurelius taught that life is shaped by the mind interpreting it. When you merge these principles, you reach the core of the IronMind strategy. The event does not matter, the interpretation does not matter, only the disciplined response matters. You transform failure by weaponizing repetition. Every time you choose action over avoidance, the brain changes. Every time you confront discomfort, the identity shifts. Every time you take responsibility, your inner architecture strengthens. This is the real alchemy, not turning weakness into strength through magic, turning it into strength through work, through consistency, through self-confrontation, through the refusal to retreat. Epictetus called it training the ruling faculty. Fromm called it transcending passivity. You will call it becoming yourself. Now the final truth, the iron mind is not built in success. It is built in ruin. In the moments when everything collapses and you stand alone with your choices. In the mornings when no one believes in you. In the nights when no one can save you, in the seconds after failure, when your ego is whispering to quit, these are the moments that forge you or break you. Stoics chose the forge. Your failures are not warnings, they are invitations. They call you to rise through reason, to act with discipline, to confront your patterns with cruelty and clarity, to build a mind that cannot be manipulated by fear or noise or shame, a mind forged in truth, a mind sharpened by adversity, a mind that does not collapse under pressure because it was born inside pressure. This is the Stoic Iron Mind way. Take the failure, strip its emotion, extract its lesson, turn it into fuel. Then walk forward without apology and without permission. The world does not need another person avoiding their potential. It needs someone who can stand inside the fire and choose to evolve. Your failure is not the end. It is the beginning of who you are supposed to become. The Stoic Iron Mind speaks with clarity, not cruelty. It cuts illusions, not people. Not